designer here at UTSA, and I run the department called Instructional Design and Development. And we're a part of a group that we don't know what the name is anymore because we've gone through management a couple times. So we don't really know who we work for at this point. So we just sort of tell everybody we're with Instructional Design and Development. Jason here is going to do a bulk of the presentation because no one wants to listen to an old person talk about technology, so I sit down. You're going to get a handout that says Teaching Online, and basically this is all you need to know to get on Blackboard. Once you get on Blackboard, you can access a course. We've given you a top secret password to this course that Jason and I are going to show you today. So you can log on as a student using the password on this handout. So if you didn't get a handout, let me know. I think we're out of them. I think we have enough.
Yeah, I got some.
Okay, good. So make sure you get a handout because when you leave this room is when you're actually going to figure out how to use Blackboard because we only have a few minutes to tell you. And Blackboard is this huge tool and does all kinds of fabulous things. I'm also going to pass around a course request sign-in sheet, and if you want to see what this course looks like as a designer, so you can play with it, put your banner ID on there, and we will give you access to a course. Well, we'll give you access to this course. You can play around with it. You can add assessments, assignments, do things that we're going to talk about today very briefly, and that you won't know how to do, but you'll be able to figure out once you get into the course. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and start the sheet around. Y'all can just pass this around while Jason is talking. He doesn't mind at all. And I'm going to drive, so let me sit in.
Okay, so as Lavonne was saying, there's a lot to Blackboard, so all of this is going to be just a very quick overview for things. I'm going to be going very quickly. If there's no questions over certain tools, I may even just skip over them, so it depends on your skill level as well. I'm going to begin from the very top of this list and then work my way down. And if you guys have questions, just raise your hand and I'll try to stop and get to it as quickly as possible. So the very first tool I'd kind of like to go over is the announcements tool at the very, okay, Lavonne's showing off the build, teach, and student view. So how many of you guys have used Blackboard before? Can you raise your hands? Okay, how many of you guys have used Blackboard before with the instructor view and the TA view? Okay, so we have a few who've done that before. So you guys may already know the build view is for adding content and building content into the course. The teach view is more for the teacher role. So if you're going to go in there into the discussion forums, that's where you would do that. If you're going to be grading, that's where you would do that. Things like those functions go into the teaching role. And then finally, the student view is what the students get to see. That's really good if you decide to hide some of the icons or if you decide to selectively release some of the icons and you want to test to make sure that the students can't see it. So the next thing that I would like to do is to build an announcement. So if you have something that you would like to let everybody in the course know, you can go into the announcements tool and you can create an announcement. So here you can give it a quick title and you can give it a message. Another thing, yes?
Is this similar to Tracks?
Is this? Tracks this?
Tracks.
Tracks?
T-R-A-C-S?
I'm not aware of what that is.
It's like, I think it's
Okay.
Is it a course management system?
it's what they use at Texas State.
Yeah.
It's probably a different course management system.
That's the CMS, and Blackboard is the version we use here, but basically it's a place to
Because that
put
was really
content.
familiar. That page was really familiar to me about announcements and stuff.
Yeah,
And
it might be the
most-
same.
Most course management systems have the same function. So if you've used another course management system, this is going to look really familiar to you.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Did I get to this page?
This page, okay, so if you go to the very top, and you don't have to be following along because this isn't meant to be a hands-on tutorial. We're just kind of doing this as an overview. But as a TA, if you need to access this later on, it will be bb.utsa.edu.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so.
You'll have a list of courses that you can access when you have a login to Blackboard. Everybody will be given a login to Blackboard, whether you're a student, TA, faculty member, everybody gets one. And if you are logging in to Blackboard for the first time, you'll see a list of courses that you have access to either as a student or a faculty member. And in this particular instance, the course that we're showing you, we're logging in as a section designer, section instructor. Some of the courses you may have in your list will have either you're a student in the course or you're a section designer. If you're
Or a TA or an auditor. So those are all the different roles.
That's how you get to it from the WebCT My Blackboard page.
Yep. So let's go back to the announcements page. And we're going to go ahead and create a quick announcement by adding a title and a message. When we're adding the message, one of the things that we like to do is to click the Enable HTML button. And what this lets us do is it lets us switch to more of a Microsoft Word kind of editor where we can add pictures, add different fonts, we can add links, hyperlinks to different places. And so it can do a lot more than what it could do if we didn't have this HTML editor. So Lavonne looks like she wants to add an image here. She can click the image icon, and then you can just select Browse, and then you just browse your computer like you normally would after you click My Computer. The other thing that you can do is you can click on class files, and you can browse the class files for images as well. So that's what Lavonne did to find this Respondus image. You can also add hyperlinks, you can add text. It looks like she's adding hello. So if we go ahead and scroll down now from this HTML editor, we also have other choices for this announcement. We can decide who this goes out to. It's a good practice to go ahead and select all roles for your announcements. That way you're announcing it to everybody. Your professor will know, your other TAs, if there's multiple TAs in a course, they'll be able to see it, and students will be able to see it as well. Or you can select just students. Another thing you can do is you can decide when this announcement goes out and when the announcement finishes. So if this is an announcement for next week, you can decide to do it for next week, and you can decide by the end of next week that it's going to be done and the students won't see that announcement anymore. So it might be next week, beginning Monday, you may want to let them know of a test on Friday. So you can say, be prepared to study the test on Friday. The announcement goes out to all the students, and then they'll be able to see it until Friday, and then it's no longer relevant, it goes away. Also, the very last option is to deliver this as a pop-up message. This is a very good thing to do because the very first thing your students will see when they log in will be this announcement, and they'll see, okay, now I have this test. So as soon as they log into Blackboard, a little pop-up will come up saying, make sure you study. Okay, so there's our announcement, and we can go back into Build and kind of work on the next tool, which is going to be our calendar tool. What we're going to do is add an entry. Here, it's just like before. You can add the title, add the message, have the HTML creator, and select the date. And I see I have a question real quick.
With the announcement, when you do it as a pop-up, do you have some issues with it actually being blocked as a pop-up, or is it handled internally?
No. If you have pop-ups blocked, you will not see it. So before you even get into Blackboard, we have a check browser, and you may want to recommend all your students go through that, and it will check for pop-ups at that time. So at the very beginning of the semester, all of you guys may want to suggest to your students to go through the browser check. You can do that at any time. I think if you click on My Blackboard, Lavonne, you can see where it says check browser now, right over up here at the very top. And it will go through and it will check everything. And I think pop-up blocker was one of the things it checks. And so if you see a green check on all of those things, you should be good to go. And that pop-up will now appear to your students throughout the rest of the semester as long as their pop-up blocker is not enabled. Okay, so now we're going to go back into the course, go into the calendar tool. Or I think we went through the calendar tool pretty much for everything. One of the last things I wanted to kind of show you for the calendar tool is this could be a personal entry. So it could be something for yourself, like I have to have all the papers graded by Wednesday. So your students won't see this, but it'll just be a note to help keep yourself more organized. Or it could be public, and then you could have that to where everybody can see it. I'm not worried about the more options. Oh, more options if it's a reoccurrence. So let's say you're setting up a meeting to where you can say, every Thursday I want to meet with my students. Then you can set up the first calendar date and then say this will reoccur every Thursday. I'll be meeting my students at 2 o'clock for office hours or things like that. You can put that into your calendar as well. You can also add files to this calendar event or add a content link. So if it's something like take the online quiz by Friday, if you go to add content link, you're actually able to add that quiz, whichever quiz it is, to the calendar event. So when they see the calendar event that says take the quiz, then they can look it up and they can actually see the link and just click it and go straight to the quiz. So that's pretty convenient as well. Okay, the mail tool. Now before I go into the mail tool, how many of you guys have used email before? Can you guys raise your hands for me real quick? Okay, so pretty much everybody. Is there anybody here who wants me to cover the mail tool in Blackboard? Okay, so let's...
The only thing y'all need to know is how to find who you send it to. So basically, if you click on Browse for Recipients, it's really simple. You can pick a person by name, you can send it to them, you can carbon copy another person. So if I wanted to say, I want my section instructors to be blind carbon copied on something that I send to a student, I can do that. So it's similar to just any mail.
One quick message is this can forward to your personal email address. I would recommend against that. And the only reason why I want to bring this up real quick is because when you respond to that mail message in your inbox, it won't go to the student. So it's better to go into Blackboard to check your Blackboard mail and respond to the student within Blackboard. Just because later on, if the student decides to debate the grade, then you still have all the evidence, all the email communication, everything else between you and that student there within Blackboard. So it works out a lot better. That's my only kind of little message, I guess, about the mail tool.
And this little icon that has the little minus sign, if you accidentally add somebody and you need to remove them, that's how you do it. And that'll appear. You'll see these little weird icons throughout Blackboard and you'll wonder what they do or what they're for. All of them have a similar function, and usually if you roll over them and are patient, it'll come up with a little tag that tells you what it does. So if you accidentally add someone, that's where you click to remove them.
Yes, sir.
I think it'd be handy for me if access my mail and said you got a message from someone, so then I can go into Blackboard.
And yeah, do that. That's fine too. It's just don't respond to that message within your mail. That's the only warning there.
You just forward. You can forward your email from your WebCT course to your Gmail or to whatever account. We just don't recommend that you respond from there.
Okay.
So you'll get the message, but you'll want to go into your course and respond to it.
Yeah.
But I can figure out how to do it.
Yeah, it'll be part of my Blackboard, and if you go into the help menu and you want to just type in forward email, it's context sensitive, so if you're at a page where you can do that, it'll tell you, and it's got a very good help function. And there's also an Ask Dr. C, and it's on your list, so if you have questions over anything we don't cover, go to help or go to the Ask Dr. C. And we also, this course you're going to have access to as a student. It has all the instructions for Blackboard kind of built in a real handy, fast pace. So you'll be able to learn some of this stuff that we don't have time to cover today.
Okay, so I think we're ready to go on past the mail tool at this point. The next thing I wanted to cover is discussions from the build view, which is going to be a little bit different from the teach and student view. You're actually able to create categories, and just to show you kind of what categories are, it's like any questions that we have here, online or in the classroom questions, initial discussion, communicating with students, coffee talk. So we have different categories here. And inside those categories, we can create different topics inside of there. So for now, what we're going to do is go ahead and create a topic. And then we have different types of discussion boards. Okay, so threaded discussions is probably what you're used to seeing, where one student posts and you can respond. And you can also make new posts and respond. And so those are more for like short little blurbs. The other type of topic will be the blog topic. And this is more for kind of a journal entry, but then all the students can share this journal entry with all the other students. And then journal entries, they can be like a blog topic to where they share with the rest of the class, or you can make them private where only the professor, the TA, and the student are able to see it. And students are not able to go into other students' journal topics and see what that student wrote. So if you want to make it to where it's more individual effort, you can create a journal topic. For now, we're going to go ahead and create a journal topic just because you guys may not be used to seeing this. Again, we can create a title, BP Spill. We can create a description. We've seen this before, so we can go ahead and scroll down. Oh. Okay, so do you think BP should be sued? Something else I wanted to show you is item visibility. So let's say this is still kind of a work in progress as we're editing this. You can make this hidden, and you can keep it hidden from students until you're ready to show students this discussion board. So they're not able to click into this discussion until you say show item. You can also go ahead, and we've had several different categories. You can put it into a category. So maybe we'll put it into, or even create a new category, but we'll go ahead and put it maybe into any questions. And then we can also give this topic a grade. So if your professor is one of those who wants to grade the discussions for participation, you can do that. You can give them a numeric grade, like 10 points, and you get like a 6 out of 10 or a 5 out of 10 or something like that. You can also give them an alphanumeric grade, which will be something like an A, a B, a C, a D, etc. We also have grade by grading form. Now this is actually what I'd recommend for TAs and professors. What a grading form does is it creates a grading rubric. So if you go ahead and click on the sources grading rubric, you can kind of see we have different criteria. So we have like spelling, grammar, style, sources, and then depending on where the student sits, needs improvement, meets expectations, exceptional, or amazing, then they get different points on that. So as a TA or a professor and you're grading the student, and you can give them, let's say, a 6 out of 10. Now you can actually explain why you gave them a 6 out of 10, and there's no conflicts there at all. So if they have 2 spelling mistakes and you took off points because of that, because of the grading rubric, now you can point to this and say, this is why I gave you that grade. You can also remove the grading rubric again, just like you saw in the email. Just click the remove button. And then you can also release the grade to students. So as soon as you're finished grading it, they'll see it in their little grade section of their Blackboard. You can associate learning goals with it. So we have goals kind of already set up here in the course, and you can decide, you know, this discussion topic, it's because we want to build confidence and because we want you to learn the Blackboard discussion tool. So you can decide, you know, there's different goals associated with participating in this discussion. Kind of slowing down, you can also, scrolling down, we can also do the peer review. So just like before, we can allow students to use a rating scale, and this is kind of like YouTube, a 1 to 5 based on everybody's comments. And here you can kind of see it. We can edit these different terms so that it says different things if you'd like to, or we can even remove the rating if we wanted to do that as well. Okay, and then we can also allow users to include their comments with their ratings, and then we can also click Save. So if they want to explain why they gave them 5 stars, 4 stars, 3 stars, the students can do that. Or what we can also do is, we had a grading form before. We can allow students to grade the other students based on that grading rubric that we set up before. So that'll make grading a little bit easier. If you trust your students to grade the other students, we can do that. And then topic behavior options. So under here, where I was talking about the journal privacy, we can make it more like a blog, or we can make it more like a journal. So right now it's set up more like a journal. It's private. It's between the instructor, the TA, and the student. But if we select public, then it becomes more like a blog, and other students are able to see the other students' entries. So we can go ahead and click cancel, and let's go ahead and move on down to, let's go ahead and do grading forms real quick. So I've been talking about grading rubrics a lot. Yes?
You said something about if there's ever a dispute with grade later down the road.
Mm-hmm.
How long do you keep the course accessible?
Lavonne, do you want to take that one?
We try to keep the course accessible for I think the HOP says how long they can challenge a grade. And the course will have to definitely be there as long as you're allowed to challenge a grade. But we also keep backups for your courses forever. We have backups since, way back when I started in 02. So, we keep the backups and we keep the students.
Okay, so even if it falls off of our sheet or page view, then we can still contact you if we need there's
And the one thing, that's an excellent point to bring up. Back up your grades all the time. Export them, export them. Make sure you don't just have them on Blackboard, because Blackboard is on a server that somebody could spill coffee on. So always. And
don't just back up your grades, but back up your course as well, because something could happen to Blackboard tomorrow. If you have a backup, then you're going to be prepared for when it comes back online. Yeah. Okay, so this is the grading form. What we're doing right now is we're creating a grading form, kind of a grading rubric. You can give it a name, you can give it a description, and then you can also set up, this is the criteria. So you can actually add criterions, which will, let's say, spelling, grammar, style. We can add another one that says content, is it relevant? We can also add performance indicators. So we have, needs improvement, meets expectations, exceptional. Maybe we have amazing or fantastic at the very end after exceptional. So you can do that. You can actually edit these. You can actually probably make the first one, did not post. So if the student did not do anything, it would be easy to give them a 0. Then you can also give them different points. So 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way over. And you can also adjust these. So it doesn't have to be 1, 2, 3, 4. It could be 2, 4, 6, 8. I mean, you can change that scale as you need be. And then you'll have your total points. Now when you're grading and they have a grading form, it'll be very easy. You just kind of click on what the student gets for whatever they post. So you don't even have to type anything in. And for now, I'm just going to go ahead and hit cancel, and we can move on to assessments. So with assessments, we can create assessments in Blackboard. We actually use, and we don't have time to go into it, nor is it installed on this computer, a tool called Respondus. And Respondus will take Word documents and automatically upload the quiz into Blackboard. So you may want to talk to your professor or even your Blackboard associate about that. For now, we're going to go ahead and create an assessment called Test and give it a description real quick. Now, whatever you call it in the title is what it'll appear in your gradebook. What's very important about this is you want to keep your gradebook names very short, because Blackboard has issues if they're over, I think, 12 characters, 12 or 15 characters. So the shorter the name, the better. So quiz 1, 2, 3, that works. Quiz 1 over the hierarchical needs of X, Y, and Z, that won't work. It's too long. Then we have 3 types. We have quizzes, surveys, and self-test. Quizzes are for a grade. Surveys are if you want to collect information from the student, and self-tests are that you get a letter grade, but it doesn't go into the grade book. So it depends on how you want to set that one up. Then you can also base this off an existing quiz. So if you want to kind of modify another quiz that you have online and just create 2 versions, you're able to do that. And then, let's see, we can also select goals and everything else. But we're going to go ahead and save and add questions to this quiz. Oh, we already have a quiz. We don't have a gradebook title here.
Yeah, because there's already one we use.
Do test C. Test today. See, and that's the other thing that's really important with your quiz names is they all have to be unique. So you can't have 2 quiz 1s inside of Blackboard. Otherwise, you're going to get this error here. Okay, so now we went ahead and it looks like we based this on another quiz. So we already have a multiple choice question here. But what we can do is go ahead and add another question to this quiz, because the question isn't enough for a quiz. We can go ahead and do a multiple choice or a true false or a fill in the blank or even a short answer. The good thing about multiple choice quizzes is that they can grade themselves automatically inside of Blackboard, because Blackboard will know what the right answer is. Now, if it's a short paragraph or a short answer or even fill in the blank, those are the ones that you may want to go in and grade and make sure that Blackboard gets it right, because there's no way for Blackboard to grade a short paragraph that a student wrote. Let's see. You can also include images with it. So if it has some complex, like let's say it's a really complex formula, then you're able to put that complex formula into the question, and then that can go into that question as well. So we're going to add water lilies. So maybe it's a... Okay. So let's see. You can also select if there's going to be one answer right or multiple answers. So it's a multiple choice, and maybe they can select A and C, and that'll be the right answer. You can do it that way, or you can just select one answer. It looks like UTSA is the correct response, and then you can also give them different values, such as 100% correct, as far as that one goes. And then when we're done, we can either create additional answers. So if we wanted to have A, B, C, D, E, and F, we just click Create Additional Answers and more comes up. Let's see. You can also, under More Options, add General Feedback. So once the student answers the question, they're able to get feedback on that question, like close but no cigar, or whatever it is, you can provide feedback on that. And we're going to go ahead and hit Cancel. So that's how you add questions to a quiz and how you create a quiz. Is there any questions over that? I know I'm going kind of quick here, so slow me down too if I'm going too fast. Okay, the next thing will be assignments. We can create assignments within Blackboard by clicking Assignments and then the Create Assignments. Now we have to do all of this stuff, again, I just want to kind of remind you, in the Build tab, because we're building things right now. If we're going to be grading them, that's all going to be under the Teach tab. So now that we're under here, we've seen this kind of same setup again and again and again. We can add our title, we can add a description, and we can go ahead and, with the instructions, tell the students what we want them to do for that assignment. Scrolling down, you can add attachments. So for instance, you may have them read a PDF article for the assignment and then submit their own paper. So that could be some of the things that you do. As far as student submissions, they could be doing text, or they can include a web page with a zip document. It's probably easier if they do just text and they attach the files as their assignment. You can also decide to give this assignment to students, or you can do it on a group basis by selecting groups of students, and you can do it that way. You can also change the due dates and the cutoff dates. The due dates is when the assignment is due. The cutoff date is the last date your professor accepts late work. So if your professor does not accept late work at all, then those dates are both going to be the same. Your due date and your cutoff date will be the same. If they accept late work for the next week, then you can make your cutoff date a week later, and that should follow your syllabus. So, then grading. Okay, again, just kind of like with the discussions, you can do the same things with your assignments, and you can do the gradebook column. You can do a numeric grade out of a certain amount. You can do the alphanumeric, or you can do it by the grading form and select the syllabus, or the sources. Okay. So, and you can use the same grading form, or you can create multiple grading forms. You may create multiple grading forms. For instance, one grading form you may use for all the discussion posts, and another grading form you may use for all the assignments. So you can choose how to use that as well. Again, you can select goals, and then under more options, students can take back and correct work after submission. You can decide if they can do that or not. And then, let's see, both the section instructor and students can publish submissions. You probably, I wouldn't change any of these other options here, and I would just click save. So not all of the options are so important. You can read through them and decide if they are important to you or not.
So what the taking back submissions then, how does that work? I mean, I take it the due dates are still the same, but say they take it back and then they don't submit it again in time, does the system still count that freeze one, or is it not completely gone?
If you allow them to take a submission back, it simply means if you looked at the paper and you want to give them another opportunity, you can say, this is not really good, you might want to take it back and take another stab at it. If you don't, once they submit it, the system won't let them take it back down.
Okay,
And
so
you
we
have
have
to
to
just
initiate
rate it
that.
as is. But it's up to you if you want to allow them to have, you know, a little extra, you know, I'm going to give you an opportunity for me to look at it and then let you take it back. It's also good if your students accidentally upload the wrong file, which happens all the time. You know, a student will be in a hurry, or they go, oh my God, I gave you the wrong file. It's a big mess then if you have to figure out, oh, I've got to find the file and, you know, tell them, I'll delete it, now you take it back. If you allow them to have that, I can submit it, just in case they accidentally submit the wrong assignment, or they realize, you know, they read it, proofread it afterwards, and they realize that they've made a bunch of mistakes and they really want to fix it, then they still have time, they can take it back. Once the due date, they can't take it back at all, but up until the due date, they can take it back. If they decide, you know, I have a little time, I'm going to fix it and make it better, then they can.
Right. So, but if it's student initiated, if they say it's due tomorrow and they submit it today and they realize, oh, made a mistake, take it back, for whatever reason though they don't come back until after the due date, now they can't submit anymore. They had submitted once before, but they took it back. Does the system still have that original file submitted?
I think the way it works is I don't know. I think both the original one should be there. And if they submit it again, then it'll just put a 1 next to it, a 2 next to it, a 3. So if they submit multiple times, it'll just, yeah.
The one thing to keep in mind is the cutoff date, it's done. I mean,
Right.
it's locked.
But I would see a situation where students would say, okay, I'm not getting a submission done, but I'm going to put some other file in there and then take it back. And now the instructor can't do it. It's like, hey, I submitted it. I don't know what the system did. Here's
Yeah.
my-
You'll be able to see it. You'll be able to see it.
Have both copies.
Yeah. Okay, so we can go into the goals tool real quick, I guess. We have a little bit of time. So this is where we created our goals that we saw earlier. This would kind of be like your learning objectives. So, you know, for each lesson, you want students to learn certain things. This is where you would put it in the goals tool if you wanted them to see that. And you can create a goal or create a category. And then once you're in there, you see the same thing, your title and your description. So that's kind of the generic Blackboard thing that you've seen in all these tools. Let's go ahead and move to Manage Course. So there was a lot of tools that we covered. And if you ever go into your Blackboard course and you don't see any of those tools, what you can do is select Tools from the top, and then you'll see a variety of tools over here. And if you don't use those tools, you can uncheck them and they'll go away. And if you do use those tools, you can give them a check and then they'll reappear. So sometimes you may say, you know, I'm missing my assessments. Where are my assessments tool? This is where you'd find them. The other thing you can do is you can actually change the order here, or you can even hide the link. And hiding the link can be useful, and we'll get into that in a minute here. And let's say the next thing I want to kind of cover real quick is learning modules and how you kind of organize your content on the main course page. So if we can, let's go ahead and click Build. And I'll kind of explain why we want to hide some of these things. So under build, what we usually try to recommend, because it gets kind of confusing for students, is to build learning modules. So this is actually a folder called learning modules. And inside that folder, we have several different learning modules. Now, another word for learning modules that you may want to consider thinking of it as is they're lessons. So now instead of grouping content, you know, like here's all the assessments, here's all the PowerPoint presentations, here's all the handouts, what we try to do is here's everything you need for lesson 1. Here's everything you need for lesson 2. Here's everything you need for lesson 3. So now instead of students, you know, searching their Blackboard course for their PowerPoint file or searching their Blackboard course for the next handout, everything's going to be self-contained within one place. So for that week, everything they need will be right there, and they'll be able to click and see it. So, right, and so at the top, you can add a file. If you have a PDF file that you would like to add, you can do it that way, or a PowerPoint file, you can do it that way. We can create folders. That's where we kind of group some of our content. Or, and Lavonne looks like she's going to go ahead and add a folder. So she's going to add a folder called videos. And if we click save, we can see it here. Now the reason why the text isn't here is because this is a very special template that hides the text. We have replaced these icons here with different icons. And then we can also, okay, so now we're inside the folder. We can also add a content link. We can add files again, just like we did before, or we can even create new folders. Now, we can either create a file or we can browse for files. So we can do it either way. If we have something on our desktop we would like to add, we can do it that way.
Do any of you know HTML? A little bit. The one nice thing about Blackboard is you don't need to know HTML. If you know how to type, you know how to insert images, you can use the HTML editor and you can create HTML directly. So if you want to create a file on the course, you can do it just by clicking Add File. And you can do that on the home page, you can do that in the folders, and you can also do that in the learning module. So wherever you go, you're going to have the ability to add files.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, I noticed that you could put in source though as well, right?
Yes.
So what I was actually, one thing you can do is if you use some other software to make your web page, then you can grab the source there and just cut and paste it into it.
Exactly.
Right.
The only thing you want to be careful of is any kind of JavaScript or Perl script or things like that. Some of that will conflict with, you want to keep your code very simple. Don't try to get really fancy.
You can actually, what I would do is zip it all up. So even if you do have those external JavaScripts or CSS, you can zip it up and then upload it to your file manager. And then you can unzip it, and then you'll have your entire structure.
And you can also add files that you add before the course. So if you created an HTML, say you have 3 HTML pages, you can put those in the course, and then all you have to do to add them is to link. So that's another way to do that.
Can we go ahead and go into the learning module, and we can go into lesson 2? So what I kind of wanted to show you is what a learning module looks like and how it's different from a folder. So what a learning module can do is it looks a lot like a folder in the fact that you can add a bunch of files, you can add assessments, you can add discussion boards, you can add everything related to the lesson. So here we have our introduction, we have our objectives, we have a couple of video presentations, we have assignments, we have all these other things. And just like before, we have the add file. So if you had other files that we would like to add to this lesson, we can do that. We can add a content link. So what content links are anything over here that we want to include in the lesson, we can do that. So if there's a relevant discussion, a relevant assignment or assessment, we can include that within the lesson for the week. We can create headings. Headings just kind of help organize everything. And like, for instance, this introduction is a heading. It's just saying, this is the introduction. And then it shows the intro to the course and the learning objectives. Those are kind of introductory type items. To let you know what this looks like, you can also change the order by checking here, and then you have your move icons. So if we wanted to move 2.5 up, we can just check both of these and then click the move up button. And it'll move it above whatever content's in front of it. Just to kind of let you know why this is better, we're going to go ahead and go into the student view now. And if you go into the student view, you can see why it's a little bit easier for the student. So what it does is it lists all those content items here on the side, and then they can view the items here on the right. So instead of having to navigate their course, going in and out of folders now, they can just click down the menu on the left-hand side and see what the next item is, see what the next item is, see what the next item is. This is also good if you have a particular order you teach your lessons. So for instance, you want your students to do the reading first, you want them to view this video first, then do a discussion post, then go and do the assignment, and then finally do the quiz. You can set up that order here in the learning module, and they can go through it one by one by one, and it'll show them, you know, step 1, step 2, step 3. I think we can go into probably the gradebook now at this time. And so we're going to have to switch back to build view, and we're going to go into, or teach view. Teach view, we have to put our teacher hat on to do the grading. So what we have here is we only have really one student called the assistant teaching. And we have the demo student as well. As you notice, the section designer does not have little blue dashes here because you can't give your professor a grade. But you can give any of the students a grade. And if you wanted to give them a grade, you can just click any of these blue links and then put in the grade that they deserve. And you can even correct grades this way. So if they made an 80 when they should have made an 85, you can go in and make those corrections. Now, whenever you make a correction in Blackboard, it will keep a log of that. So if you're, making corrections for money, this teacher will be able to go through and see that, hey, why is my TA changing all these students' grades when they're failing these tests? So just to be aware of that, we can go through and see all of that. So whenever you make a change, as you can see, if I kind of hit close here, you have to make a comment on why you're making that change. So if you're changing it from an 80 to an 85 or an 80 to a 90, you may want to say it's because Blackboard messed up, for instance, and it didn't grade this the right way, so I'm making this change myself. So you can also create columns. Okay, so for any assessments or assignments that you don't go through Blackboard, let's say it's an in-class assignment, and you have to grade that by hand, or if it's a paper they turn in that you're actually going to grade and they're not submitting it through Blackboard, you're going to have to create a grading column. And you have a couple of different choices here. So if it's going to be alphanumeric A, B, C, D, you can do it that way. If it's a letter grade, you can do it that way. Numeric grade, you can do it that way. Or if it's just text, you can do it that way. So text grade would be like attend or did not attend, attend, did not attend. So those are some of the other options there. You can also import from spreadsheet. So this actually exports to Microsoft Excel, and you can make some of your changes there, and then when you're finished you can actually import back into Blackboard. Be very careful doing that, and always keep a backup of all the grades just in case something goes wrong. You still have all your grades on hand. You can also reorder the columns, and now that's really important too, because the way you see your columns in the gradebook going this way, your students will see in the gradebook when they're in student view going down. And so when you're creating quizzes, sometimes they get out of order, and you may have like quiz 1, quiz 3, quiz 2, quiz 5, quiz 8, quiz 3, or 4, or whatever again. So when you reorder your columns, you want to make sure it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 going down. Your student will see it the same way. And then also at the very end, we have gradebook options. Here you can have different column settings. You can unfreeze columns. Here's where your professor can go in and view the audit history. You can go in and view the audit history. So those options are available to you as well. I mentioned exporting to Excel. Just to show you where that button is, it's just this button here. And it should just kind of pop up Microsoft Excel. It should ask you, do you want to open this in Microsoft Excel or Internet Explorer once you click that.
Do you know what the format of that file is?
CVS, I think. Yeah. Or CSV. Yeah.
But it's common. Yeah.
The one thing that you also will notice, if you have a student who did poorly on a test and you look across the gradebook, you also have an option to select that student and send them an email. That's one of the nice functions. So if you're a TA and your responsibility is grading and promoting, having the students know how they're doing, it's a nice thing to be able to select the ones who say maybe got under 75. And you can sort these columns by grade. So you can have them go up, down, however you want to sort them. And once you've sorted the column, you can have everybody who got, say,
above us, yeah,
on top, and then you can select their names, push it down, and send them an email and tell them you guys probably need to buy the book.
or start coming to my office hours or something. Okay, I know I went very quickly through a lot of those tools. Did you guys have any questions on the way Blackboard works?
If, if I'm doing a recitation for a class, and the professor doesn't use Blackboard, does that mean I'm not gonna be able to use Blackboard, or?
Yes,
Yeah.
the only way that you have access to a Blackboard course is if the professor requests a Blackboard course shell. And if they don't, usually their students insist on it after a certain point, and the professor will. If the students want to see their grades, they usually, that's one of the main things, is I want Blackboard so that I can see my grades, or I can use email. So normally the professors who don't use Blackboard, some of them are stubborn and they're not going to, but some of them say, oh, I didn't know you guys wanted it, but I'll get it.
Any other questions? I know it was a really quick overview on everything.
We might point out the tracking.
Okay. So if we actually go to tracking within the Teach view, and what I usually do is the very bottom one, the student tracking here, you can go ahead and click that one, and we can actually set up a date range. What this is really neat is, why this is really neat, is it will track all the different tools the students have used and the amount of time they've spent in those tools. So especially if you've set everything up in learning modules and you have everything online, if you want to prove a student is spending a certain amount of time in those tools, you can do that way. One of the things it doesn't check for is if they log in and then just, go play video games, go watch some TV, come back, click something, go back to watching TV and video games. It will still, it'll track all of that time, but it will also track the students who log in for 5 minutes, do a quick discussion, and then leave. And you'll be able to say you only spent 5 minutes online. Why, this is the reason why you probably failed your last examination or your last test. So, and that's pretty cool. And we only have two up here right now. We have the teaching assistant and we have the demo student. The teaching assistant hasn't even logged into the course. So that's something else you can look at is, hey, you haven't even logged in once. You probably need to get on that. And then here is also where it's showing the dates they've accessed it, the total time. If they've submitted any assessments, assignments, if they've done any discussion posts, it'll show you the number of posts they've done. So if your professor is grading based on number of posts, you can also look at it that way. So that's a really useful tool.
Talk about the assignment Dropbox. From their perspective, if you're grading assignments in the course for teaching assistants, that's normally what you're going to be doing. The assignment Dropbox is available under the Teach tab. Most of the stuff that you're going to be doing as a TA will be available under the Teach tab. And the Teach tab is where you're going to go to look at the stuff that has been submitted and not submitted. So if you have a student that you need to pressure a little bit, you're going to look at the not submitted. And any stuff that hasn't been done, you're going to see there. The stuff that is graded that you've already looked at, you can click on that and you can see, oh, I don't need to bother these students. I've already got their stuff turned in. You can see what has been published. For example, if you have stuff that you're going to push out to everybody, you'll see what has been published, and then you can click on the All tab, and that'll show you all of the assignments that are available, and then the ones that have been submitted, and the ones that have not been submitted. So that's a very helpful thing. As a teaching assistant, most of your roles are going to be handled in the Teach tab, and depending on the amount of access you have to the course, that's the tab where you'll be spending most of your time in. So you're going to be probably you'll be managing the assessments. So you'll be looking at what's been submitted, what hasn't been submitted. Because if you have some professors like to have their assessments be timed, you'll be able to see if somebody hasn't started them. If somebody started them and something happened, you'll be able to go in there and see. The assignment Dropbox, you're going to be working on the grade book. The grading forms can be opened here. The group manager, we didn't want to talk about, but if you're a teaching assistant and your role is going to be assigning people to groups, you're going to be able to go in and create groups here. You can create custom groups, which are you're going to choose who goes in what group. So if you know your students, you can add them that way. You can also create multiple groups where you decide randomly, I want 5 groups, or I want as many groups as it takes to have groups with 5 members. And you can also create groups where students sign up and decide, I want to be in this group because I'm going to work on this particular project. So that's another way that you can create your groups. So student tracking is a really good thing. If you're wanting to promote student participation, you can kind of look on their track and say, oh, this person's really not participating. I need to probably encourage him. Or I need to say, do not have
We can show them selective release maybe real quick. So what's nice about selective release is if you already have your faculty member's syllabus and you know what days they have certain assignments and you know what days certain lessons will be appearing, you can actually change when things are available. So let's say they have to take a quiz by a certain amount of time. You can add a date criteria to say, you know, you have until this date and until this date. And if it's not done by then, it disappears. It automatically hides itself from their Blackboard so that none of the students will be able to see it. Another kind of criteria could be a member criteria. The way you might want to use this is, let's say you have an extra credit assignment for a particular student, then you can actually assign that particular student extra credit, and only that student will see it. None of the other students will see it. Now, not just talking about extra credit assignments, but if one of the students has a disability and you don't want the other students in the class to know about it, so for instance, let's say one of the students is deaf and you have a video on the course, well, they're not going to be able to hear it. So you can type up the manuscript into a Word document and then you can selectively release it only to that student. And nobody else in the class has to know that there's a deaf student in that course. Another thing you can do is add group criteria. So let's say you're going to create discussion boards and you're going to have 5 groups. That means you're going to have 5 discussion boards and you don't want the groups to see each other's discussions. Then you can add the group criteria and say group 1 can only see group 1 discussion. Group 2 can only see group 2 discussion. Group 3 can only see, and so forth, to where all the groups will discuss individually and they won't be able to see each other's post. You can also add gradebook criteria. So you can say extra credit for all of those who made below a 60 on this exam. And then extra credit will be only available to those students. Or another thing you can do, which is really neat, is you can make a quiz on the syllabus. And you can selectively release all the other course content that you have. And until they make 100 on the syllabus exam, or the little syllabus quiz, they won't be able to view everything. So that will ensure your student has read the syllabus. They made 100 on that quiz, which means they are now accountable for everything on that syllabus. So there's some really interesting things you can do with the selective release tool.
And also from this view, you can hide and reveal stuff. So if you don't know if you've got stuff that you're not finished with, just hide it. So put all your stuff on the course and then hide the stuff that you're not ready